Hey, yo, what up, everybody? It's your boy, Evan, one half of MF Pearl. We got the other half sitting behind the cameras, making sure that we rolling. We got David back there.
Hey everyone.
And you know what it is. Yes, sir. Legends Only in the building. Volume 2. Live at MFHQ. Disclaimer. Live at MFHQ is in fact not recorded live. It's actually a pre-recorded program. This episode contains sexually explicit content, so feel free to do what you wish with that information. If you could be so kind of like, follow, and subscribe for me. We go a very long way. New episodes every Wednesday. Now back to the show. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was almost going to do the disclaimer on my own. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Everybody, thank you all so much for the continued support. Make sure you guys keep showing love to the channel. Find us on YouTube, all of our full-length episodes, MF Pearl. Of course, you can also catch those on our website, mfpearl.com. If you're watching this on your favorite streaming platform or listening to it on your favorite streaming platform, Spotify, Apple Pod, Amazon Music, make sure that you guys show love however you can on those platforms. Like it, save it, give it a rating, share it. Whatever you guys can do goes a long way. And as always, to stay most up to date with us, keep up with us on the Instagrams at MF Pearl. But hey, yo, let's get back to the episode one time. Today, we are absolutely honored to host our guest for episode number 40. Another milestone. And our guest is no stranger to MF milestones, along with many milestones that are currently being reached within El Paso's creative community. Film and music to be exact, as he has been an extremely active and supportive force in pushing La Frontera's film arts forward. His efforts towards the community have provided new opportunities, as well as building on the current existing ones for our array of talented artists, and he doesn't just stop his work here. He's also regularly in other cities, such as Austin, where he will both share and pool knowledge to bring back to our hometown. Our city's moving in the right direction, and the people and organizations such as our guest today are one of the many cornerstones. I've learned plenty, and I've also been introduced to so much opportunity that still lies ahead because of him. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, live at the HQ from Creative El Paso, we welcome Drew and
Amazing intro.
Oaks.
Thank you, Evan.
Yeah, Drew.
That, man, brings a tear to my eye.
Oh, man, it's an honor to write that.
I really appreciate that. I just came from another event and film event, and I saw a number of people that, I met recently or the last few years, and it's so excited to see people grow and move forward.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing like a big blitz of that within our creative community over the last couple of years. I think a lot of people have been able to take new levels, and I do think that we're seeing a lot more support on an organizational level towards individual artists and smaller platforms. And Creative El Paso is definitely one of them. So I think that's like a perfect start for us. For the audience, is there a chance that you'd be able to help us define what Creative El Paso is and how long it's been around?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I kind of rebranded our El Paso Film Commission as Creative El Paso about 3 years ago. And it's something that I had been thinking about a lot. I was a film commissioner in San Antonio for about 11 years. And one of the things I wanted to do was to move us more into music and other creative industries, because at that time, the Texas film industry was really seeing a lull. There was a definite slowdown in things that were happening in the state.
And this is like post-COVID, right?
This is pre-COVID.
It's pre.
So so in the late 2000s, early 2010s, driven by a lot of things. But so when I got to El Paso in 2017, I pitched the idea to Destination El Paso, which is where I work, and they thought it was a great idea. They loved it. So that's how we got started. And right now we're primarily handling film and music, and we want to be a resource for other creative industries as well.
Mm-hmm. What does a film commission do, per se? How do you support film through that?
Well, film commissions are interesting, and Texas is one of the states that's been a leader in film commission offices. And generally, a film commission is a governmental office that is set up to help filmmakers make their films in, in whatever region that the film commission serves. And it really started in literally the 1950s and 60s when Hollywood was starting to move outside of LA and New York and starting to make movies in the real places. Think about The Getaway, which was Sam Peckinpah made in Texas, all over Texas.
What year is that movie?
They shot it in 70 and 71.
Okay.
Badlands, Terrence Malick's first film,
Mm-hmm.
on location. Wasn't shot in Texas, but that's okay. But they were these filmmakers that were kind of the new Hollywood guys that were really, really pushing the envelope, and they were moving outside of LA because they wanted real locations and real places.
Yeah.
So film commissioning started in that era, and Texas was one of the first states to have a film commission. It was set up in 1971 by then Governor Preston Smith, who's actually from Lubbock, which is my hometown, and he was, a very interesting man. But many people don't realize he was a theater owner, and his business, when he came back from World War II, he and his brother started to buy theaters in West Texas and eastern New Mexico. So he knew Hollywood, he knew the industry, and he knew the benefits that production could bring to a state. So that was really what got Texas started, and through his leadership and subsequent leadership in the state, city offices started to spring up. San Antonio was an early one. El Paso was set up in 1974. So they had
50 years, huh?
50 years, yeah. So we've been doing it a while, and I started in 1991 with the State Film Commission, so I've been doing it a while too.
Is that the beginning of film for you in general, or does it start with like maybe aspiring to be a director or just a big time movie lover? Where does your career find it? When does your career find itself in film?
Well, I started shooting 8mm films when I was in elementary school, and my dad had filmed on 16 quite a bit. He was an archaeologist, and he was a professor at Texas Tech, and he used filmmaking for his work. He would document his digs and so forth. So I was familiar with how film worked, but I was also I was kind of sickly as a child, so I was at home a lot, and I watched television. And back then, there were 3 networks, PBS, and then there was always like a indie station in each market, and they would show the old movies and the old TV series. And so that's what I just remember watching as a kid over and over and over again. And so I really found that storytelling, especially movies and television, were something that really interested me. And I continued to kind of experiment with regular 8mm, then Super 8, and then videotape in high school, back when it was half-inch reel-to-reel, black and white.
Like the roll?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Old school.
We got SD cards now. It's crazy.
Yeah, but I went off to college, and I took the basics, but then I realized that I wanted to focus on film, so I transferred to UT, and that was in '83, and I was really fortunate. I got there in the spring semester. I got all my prerequisites out of the way, and then I took summer school, which was the smartest thing in hindsight that I ever did, because at that time, a lot of the faculty and the people that wrote the textbooks, they were teaching in the summer because it was an easy load for them, and they could do it. So when the fall semester came around, literally my teachers from the summer semester walked me down to the production classes and said to the instructors, "Drew's going to be in your class. So,
Yeah.
and I had heard horror stories about, oh, if you go to UT, you're not going to get into production for at least 2 years. You're not going to get into any production classes. So I was lucky. And
Why? It's like a tough crowd, or
just so many people,
mm.
it was really popular at that time. So I got in, started right away doing production in 16, black and white, and then color in the next 2 years. So it was very serendipitous that I transferred in.
Yeah. Where did you begin college, and then what was your degree final? What did you complete it in?
Well, I completed it in RTF film production from UT
What
Austin,
does RTF mean?
radio, TV, film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, some schools it's RTV, radio and television, and now it's media studies. It's changed names, but I first my freshman year I went to private school in Atlanta, Emory University, and
Was it a film directed
no, I was just liberal arts. I was pre med, so
from Lubbock to Atlanta?
yeah,
Whoa.
yeah, and so I drove out there with a buddy of mine that was going sight unseen and just went into the dorm and got set up, and I wouldn't trade that experience for anything, and it kicked my butt. I mean, that school was hard. It was tough. I was writing papers every week for 1, 2, or 3 classes, and then I was taking sciences, and it's the first place that I really realized that, I'm not the best student in the world. Whereas in high school, I kind of skated through. It was pretty easy for me. But I came back to Lubbock after that, and didn't want to pursue pre-med anymore. So I just did a couple more semesters at Tech because
Okay.
it was easy, and I got some other basics out of the way, and then took a year off. We had a big hailstorm in Lubbock after my second year at Tech, and after my first year at Tech. So I just quit school, and a friend of mine was roofing. So I did roofing until the following January, and that's when I moved to Austin.
Busy work, huh?
Yeah.
Because of that hailstorm.
Yeah.
Man, it was a serious hailstorm.
Yeah.
When you were in Austin in the '80s, did it still have that Austin's weird energy, or what's the saying?
Keep Austin weird?
Yeah, it
Is that
was.
what it is? Keep Austin
Yeah.
weird.
It was before Keep Austin Weird because Austin just was weird. I mean,
So it still had that same.
It did.
Progressive.
it was super progressive. It was after the Armadillo World headquarters had closed, but there were still a lot of the clubs that were really instrumental in driving the music scene there. It was a great time to be there. Some of my classmates were Lee Daniel, who was the DP on Dazed and Confused and Slacker and a bunch of other Rick Linklater films, and the Sunrise trilogies, and Mike Bonvillain, who's now a really well-known director of photography, and some others. So it was a really cool time to be there. And Austin, it was still Austin. I mean, I lived right near campus, and it was like $300 a month rent, and split that with somebody, and
That's like,
had
man, dude.
had a little motorbike, and that was my main transportation. And I just remember it seemed to rain all the time in Austin because I was on a motorcycle. But it was a really cool time. There were, of course, Texas Chainsaw, I think, is one of the turning points in Austin indie film, and it really laid the groundwork for everything that came after. In fact, the first film I worked on was in the fall of '83, and it was a lot of people that had worked on Chainsaw. And that's where I first met some of the actors. Marilyn Burns was in this film. It's called Splatter. It's been released as Future Kill. I don't think anybody's ever seen this movie, but it's out there somewhere. And so Marilyn was in it. Some other people from Chainsaw. I met Robert Burns, who was a production designer on Chainsaw. So there were still those people in Austin that were, hadn't become super famous, but they were still working in film. And then, Rick and Robert Rodriguez in 92, 93, 10 years later, they really came into prominence but they had all gone through the same kind of growing pains that I was experiencing there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an interesting time because video was king, and you could make 16 millimeter features and sell them direct to the home video market, which was very cool. I had a lot of the productions that went on in Austin were designed just for that. And in fact, that's what Rodriguez, his goal was to shoot El Mariachi. He shot it on 16. He edited it on video. He never intended to make a film print. He was just going to sell it to a Mexican distributor because he figured that would be the easiest thing. And it could have, except for some luck that he had in getting it seen by some Hollywood types. But yeah, it was a fascinating time to be there. Austin is definitely changed a lot, but there's a lot of the same spirit for sure.
The creative spirit.
It was a great experience for me because through film school, because I'd taken all my prerequisites and I was taking only film the last 2 years that I was there, 2.5 years. And we had screenings every night, Monday through Friday, at either one of the auditoriums or at the student union. And then we had weekend films at the Varsity Theater and other theaters in town. The Village Cinema had just gotten going. And so it was really easy to be immersed in film at that time.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Man, a movie every night essentially then, right? That's tough. I can't even find the time to, go ahead and catch a movie these days, man. Things are so busy. But being able to have work within film, when you said about splatter, what was your role on that? What did you do?
I was a production assistant.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what were some of the kind of things you were doing?
Not much. I mean, I was doing traffic control, extras. I was wrangling extras, and I was also running a lot, doing errands. And I remember that was the first time I'd ever heard of a breakfast taco. And they were like, "Go get breakfast tacos." And I was like, "What are those?" And so I went down to Mr. BB's on South Lamar and ordered like 35 bean and cheese tacos and brought them back to set. So it was only about a 3-week shoot, but it was really an interesting experience.
Yeah, man. And then right after your time at university, do you immediately become a part of the State Film Commission, or are there other career steps that happen in between that?
There was about 6 years where I was kind of fumbling around, and I moved to LA with some buddies of mine.
Okay.
I was in class, and I did some postgraduate work at UCLA. So that was interesting. I tried to get work. I did work on one feature as a PA, but it was unpaid. And they mainly just hired me. They didn't actually hire me. They just said, "Hey, you can volunteer," basically, because I had a car, and I knew how to drive in LA. I knew where things were, so I was running errands for that movie for about 6 weeks, and then this is like my most famous story. I went to get an interview for an internship at a production company after that movie that I was running on. And they're like, "Yeah, we'd love to have you. You've got a little bit of experience. You got the film degree, but it is an unpaid internship." And I was like, "Oh man, I just I don't even have any gas money. This was it was desperation." And so I said, I can't do it. I got to get paid." And they said, "Well, I'm sorry. It's not a paid job." And that was a movie that was in production. They were in pre-production, and it was about a mermaid, and it starred Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah. It was directed by Ron Howard, so it was Splash. They didn't tell me what the movie was, and that's the movie that basically put Ron Howard over the top. I mean, he'd done Night Shift and then Splash. And I later learned as I got older that I should have taken that position, because on most of the larger productions, if you do a good job, they'll get you on the payroll at some point. My my first mistake was the film I worked on prior to that as a runner was such a schlocky movie that they didn't pay anybody, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh man, I could have started with Ron Howard and Brian Grazer back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
at Imagine Films,
Yeah.
but didn't happen. So I moved back to Austin, did some other work. I worked for a video producer for a while, and did my share of weddings, sporting events. Never worked for a TV station, but we would always edit at TV stations because there weren't really good post production facilities for low end production for 3/4 inch video production.
And it wasn't really like easy or accessible to just have an at home setup, right?
It didn't exist. I mean, it literally didn't exist. There was some high end places that did high end work, but I couldn't afford that. So that was an interesting time. And then I ended up working on a feature film, and a buddy of mine from film school was on it, and he had done a lot of work with Bill Whitliff. He'd worked on Lonesome Dove and some other things, and Barbarossa and Raggedy Man, I think, and so he said, "Hey, I need another person on my team," and he was doing the props. So I did props on a movie called Hard Promises in 1990. So we were shooting from like July through November, and it was in Austin. Sissy Spacek was the star. Billy Peterson was in it, and it was also like a who's who of some of the old Texas actors. Rip Torn was in it,
Oh.
and I can't remember Ann Wedgeworth. I don't know if you know who she is, but she was a very prominent Texas actress. Mayor Winningham was in it.
So far, I only know Rip Torn.
It was like a lot of people. Anyway,
These
so
are all Texas based.
yeah, a lot of them. So I did props on that, and that was a blast. I had a lot of fun, but it was hard work. We were doing 6-day weeks, and we worked Tuesday through Sunday. So we had Monday off, but that's when we had to like pay the electric bill, and this was before email. This was before any of this stuff.
Dang.
No electronic banking, none of that.
Yeah.
And I just was like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. And I was single. I was engaged, and so it just felt like I can't do anything. I can't play softball with a team. I can't ride my bike. I can't do anything because I'm just on this movie. And we were doing 12-hour days regularly. And that film was interesting because they halfway through they fired the director, and we reshot almost everything that had been shot, which was another few weeks of work for us, but it was still kind of weird. Anyway, so I did that, and then I got on another one, right after that, and it wasn't so bad. It was a movie of the week, and it was a couple of weeks, and I got to be an assistant to Bill Bixby, who was directing it. Bill Bixby, who was the Incredible Hulk and on TV, and he had some other TV shows, The Courtship of Eddie's Father, and that sort of thing. One of the nicest people I've ever worked with and met. And but through that one, I met Tom Copeland, who was the director of the Texas Film Commission, and this film also shot in Austin. And they were hiring for location coordinators. So when this show wrapped in January of '91, I went and interviewed for that position, and I got it. And that kind of started my career with film commissioning. And Tom Copeland, was at the Film Commission for many years. He was director for, I think, 17 years at some point. And it was a magical time because there was studio production happening in the state right and left. Mm-hmm. Movies of the week. And since we covered the whole state, I'd do stuff in El Paso. I did stuff in Marfa. I did stuff in the Panhandle, Dallas, Houston.
Being the location coordinator?
Being a location scout.
Scout, is that what first brought you to El Paso? Or with all the other films that you had been on?
I actually scouted a project called, what was it called? It was Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan. It was called, now I can't remember the name of it. You know that one? It was directed by the guy that directed The Fabulous Baker Boys. Flesh and Bone. That was it. Yeah.
Oh.
So that was in like '92, I think.
And that's your first time coming
That's
to
the
El
first
Paso?
time I'd worked in film out this way. I'd traveled to El Paso a lot
Oh, really?
as a youngster. Yeah, because I was in band and we would play El
Oh,
Paso
okay, okay.
teams, and we'd come in and we would often travel in Mexico, and we would start in Juarez and then go south from there.
Mm.
Our family would travel, and so anyway, so that really got me started in film commissioning, which I really enjoyed because I loved driving and I loved the state and I was familiar with the state. And prior to that, working with this other video producer and some other jobs that I had, I'd worked in technical coordinating and road closures and stuff like that. And so it really was a good fit for me. And
Very natural.
yeah, and there was an interesting period where the Houston Film Commission, which had been established for like 8 or 9 years, they lost their funding for like a year. And that was right when I was at the state film office. So I became the Houston, specialist, and I traveled up and down the coast and worked with a number of projects. And the one that I remember was called Simple Men, which was a Ted Hope produced film. It was a Hal Hartley film with trying to remember, the Adrian Shelley was in it, and Robert Burge. Burge? Who was RoboCop? He was the second RoboCop. Robert. Bob Burge.
No, you're hitting me with stuff I haven't.
Okay, yeah. So he did the Atlanta RoboCop. Anyway, that was super cool. They shot in like Texas City and Lamarck, and they were shooting. The film took place in Long Island, and they shot it in January in Texas.
And you're scouting these spots.
Yeah, yeah. And then the other one I did, the larger film that I did down there, was Sidekicks with Chuck Norris and Joe Piscopo and oh man, the kid that was in Sequest back in the day. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. That was directed by Aaron Norris, so Chuck's brother directed
really?
that, and that's a popular streaming film. It's kind of a Walter Mitty story about a young nerd who wants to be Chuck Norris, and so Chuck appears to him
Chuck Norris.
and
Man.
helps him, win the tournament or whatever. But,
Chuck Norris. When you're location scouting, I guess what does that look like? Like are you given a screenplay? Are you given a
Yeah.
storyboard of some sort, and
We
you're trying to
usually-
match that in real life?
yeah, we get a script, and then you get feedback from different people on the production. Sometimes it's the production designer, like they're looking for a very specific location or a farmhouse. I did a project called The Last Prostitute with Sonia Braga, which was cool to meet her. And the production designer was my primary contact, and he was looking for the perfect farmhouse.
Okay.
And it had to have, this barn on the side, and it had to have the road right here, and it needed to be 2-story. And he just had in his mind what it was going to be. And we ended up finding that in Brenham, Texas, and they actually filmed in Brenham.
And how do you find a farmhouse in a place that I think I just heard for the first time? I've never heard of that place.
Yeah,
How do
well,
you stumble on that?
we use a number of techniques.
Resources, people you know.
We call, and for farms, one of the best resources is the Agricultural Extension Office. So A&M has this system, this statewide system of agriculture extension offices where they offer help to farmers basically. So in every region of the state, there's an ag agent, and they know all the farmers in the entire region. So that's a really good resource. And then real estate professionals sometimes can be helpful.
Oh, true, yeah.
And then city chambers, like in Brenham, I think we probably worked with the chamber. And then just scouting, getting on the ground and with maps. And, Brenham is a farming region, so it wasn't a stretch to find a farmhouse there. And then I've also done a lot of aerial scouting, so both in fixed wing and helicopters. Yes,
Fixed wings like a plane.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
So then with the sorry, not to interrupt, but with the position as a location scout coordinator, was it like 0% time spent in an office? It was all just traveling during this time, just always out and about.
no, it was probably 60% in the office and
Okay.
40% because
Sometimes the office, the set, or no, you're talking about like office.
our business office, but we would maintain. We had the state still has a photo library of hundreds of thousands of photos of all regions in the state. So that was always our first go-to. It was like, well, let's go to the file and see if we have a folder on farmhouses, which we did. We had tons of them, and of course, we showed them to the production designer, and there wasn't anything that really worked. So that's why we then went to Plan B, which is okay. Well, and they knew they wanted to be in the Houston area or the Austin area. So we just started looking everywhere in between, and that's how we ended up in
Is
Brenham.
Brenham closer to Houston or Austin?
It's about equidistant.
Oh, really?
I think it's
Okay.
maybe a little closer to Houston. Yeah, it's on Highway 290. It's a beautiful town. It's the home of Bluebell ice cream. So,
Really?
yeah, I'm surprised you don't know it.
No, I didn't know that. I've never heard of it. I also don't eat Bluebell ice cream.
Oh,
so,
okay, but you know of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll mess with some Ben and Jerry's. No, I have no problem with any ice cream brand. In case any ice cream brand is watching.
Watch it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll take any of it.
Straight up.
Yep.
Lifetime supply.
Yeah.
No, I wonder if the movie. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It came out maybe 2020, if anything. I wonder if the movie X went about that like agricultural route, because I think the whole movie takes place on like a farm.
Yeah.
Like a
yeah.
swampy farm though.
Yeah, they probably did. I mean,
marshy.
it was filmed in Australia, I believe.
Really?
It was set in Texas.
Yeah, there you go. I was about to say it feels really Texas. So
Yeah.
the way the film is, and that's crazy. Mad Max is also like purely an Australian film too.
Yeah.
Like completely Australia.
Yeah.
Man, that's wild.
X. It's possible that they scouted Texas,
Yeah, probably.
but they ended up shooting in Australia for whatever reason. Sometimes it's time. If you need to shoot in the middle of winter,
Yeah.
going down under is a good option because
Oh wow.
it's
That's so true.
southern hemisphere. So yeah, it's interesting. And then agriculture is an important part of a lot of films. Like I was just reading an article the other day about the movie called Signs
Yeah.
with Mel Gibson, and they had this sequence where he's driving his pickup through the cornfields. I believe it's that movie.
It could be Interstellar.
Christopher Nolan.
Interstellar. It's Interstellar.
Yeah.
So they planted like 300 acres of corn for that scene.
That had to have taken
So
a while.
so they had to coordinate with ag people, farmers. They had to get the land, and they probably didn't film it at the exact time when corn is actually growing at that. Who knows? And that's one of the cool things about Texas, especially South Texas, is like, oh, we need corn in January. They're like, we can probably make that happen, if you plant it and take care of it. But so that's an important part of it. Another great project I worked on with the state was What's Eating Gilbert Grape,
Okay.
and that was a blast. And you know that film.
I'm
right?
familiar with the title.
Okay,
I haven't seen it just yet though.
Yeah,
Is that the one with Leonardo DiCaprio?
Leo
He's a
DiCaprio.
special ed kid, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and Johnny Depp and Mary Steenburgen is based on a Peter Hedges novel, and I think that's the right author.
That was filmed in Texas?
It was filmed in Manor, Texas, right outside of Austin.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Did you guys work on the movie that was just filmed a couple of months back with Leo?
We did. Yeah. We worked on that. Worked on that for about 2 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Prior to filming. So,
Man.
yeah. It's currently just untitled Paul Thomas Anderson project. And I've never seen a script. So I can't tell you what it's about.
Is 2 years usually like the average when it comes to planning these things out?
It's not unusual, but it's probably not the average. That was a little longer than normal, I think. But the director and the production designer had very specific things that they wanted, and they literally like drove across this part of the states. And of course, Paul was familiar with El Paso because he'd filmed There Will Be Blood in the Marfa and area. So he flew into to El Paso regularly for that. So yeah, 2 years is probably a little longer than normal.
Yeah, I mean, they're already working on Dune 3.
Yeah, but I mean,
crazy.
sometimes it'll be years, but it's because a project's in development. But this one was happening, and it was just a long pre-production schedule.
So this is, at the very least, are you like aware if this is supposed to be some big cinema release, or it has to be?
Yeah.
Why would you have?
Oh yeah,
Leonardo DiCaprio?
it's a Warner Brothers.
I just feel like there's so many movies that, like, even big name movies that are immediately in streaming now. What's your take on like how we've evolved as how we consume film? Because most of the time, I mean, you probably have a better understanding of whether or not movie theaters are dying. Are they?
Well, it depends on who you talk to. The thing that's disappointing to me is that a lot of theaters are dying, and especially smaller theaters and first run,
Like one of
second
ones,
second
local?
run theaters.
What does that mean? What is this?
Well, like the ones that show the dollar movies and
Oh,
all that.
okay.
Every major metro area used to have one theater that was second run.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much gone, I think. And it's fascinating. I think filmmakers are starting to figure out that they can make things happen theatrically if that they have enough power. And I know there's something in the news. There's a new, I think is it Daisy Ridley? Some new big thing, and the it's from Amazon, but they're pushing for a theatrical release. It's either
it's a
from
movie?
it's either from Amazon or Netflix. But anyway, yeah, theater business has always been tough. I think because you never know. I mean, it's like sometimes there's just no good movies out.
Yeah.
And when that's your
True. I think right now
livelihood,
there's nothing
you
good
got a
out.
lot of empty theaters sometimes. But the multiplexes allowed allowed that allowed the theatrical distribution to continue to grow throughout the 90s and 2000s. But yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I remember seeing Episode 1, Star Wars, Phantom Menace, in LA with a digital projector, and that movie was shot digitally. And it was like the first, and it was like no man's land because there was no international standards, and it was completely new, and uh, it's changed the industry, and streaming has changed how we think about film releases. And like you were saying, there are a lot that just go straight to streaming.
Big ones too.
Yeah.
Like big production people are just going straight to
Yeah.
Max or
And
Prime.
the model is so different because it doesn't rely on box office. It relies on subscribers. And Netflix, man, they just seem like they're just unstoppable because the news lately is that they're just continuing to grow and grow and grow.
Yeah, even though the price keeps going up, right? Because I know that it feels as if people keep saying, "Oh, I'm gonna cancel my Netflix if they raise the price again." So it's hard to imagine that they're still going up. But they also just keep acquiring and having deals with, like, I'm pretty sure they have a lot of deals with A24. In fact, Max has an A24 collection. Um, their whole partnership with Warner Bros is insane.
Yeah.
During the COVID years, it like Christopher Nolan stood the ground for Tenet and all that because of how much he believed in cinema still.
Yeah.
So it's wild to think of, like, that's why I didn't think it was a far-fetched question to ask if that Leonardo DiCaprio movie was going to be like straight to streaming as well. Maybe that was me thinking that though cuz it was filmed in El Paso for some reason. I think I was accidentally undermining an El Paso location for production.
Well, they filmed most of it in California. So.
Okay. Is there a very important part of it that takes place here though, or was that like just cameo level stuff?
Well, no, it was the primary actors. So it was Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, and
Leo.
Leo, yeah.
And it was like a downtown thing?
Yeah, they had 3 primary sets, and they would move between them.
Man.
Yeah, all downtown, kind of the near southern section of downtown, all the way down to the Stanton Street Bridge. So it was interesting. They filmed at night mostly, and it was a challenge. It's the biggest film I've ever worked on. Nobody knows exactly what the budget is, but it was rumored to be 140 to 150 million, which is enormous for a non-fantasy,
Yeah.
non-effects driven
Yeah,
film.
yeah, yeah.
Do you think the ballooning of these budgets is hurting Hollywood more than whatever these, I guess, like producers are expecting to get in return?
Well, I think there's been a major shift in that thinking because the streamers were throwing tons of money at stuff, and they've quit doing that. Netflix used to have what they called their spectacle division, and they shuttered that earlier this year. So they're not making $200 million movies anymore, or 300. The only guy doing that left is Tom Cruise. So his latest. Did you see that the new Mission Impossible's
The Reckoning
pushing
ones?
400 million?
That's
In terms of
insane.
budget?
Yeah, it might even be 500. I think it was just astronomical.
The stunts, man. And then like probably any sort of Avatar movie is probably huge in budget as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it goes in cycles, and so there's a contraction right now. A24 is really the model that a lot of people
Man,
are
yeah.
looking at.
Yeah.
is-
I love
is
A24.
It's working for them.
Do you like their movies?
They have a certain aesthetic that seems to be popular.
Like I can't think of any other studio. Maybe I'm lying. But I mean, of course Warner Brothers is so big and everything, but like I've never I can't think of any other studio that's had such a notoriety that's built behind them, a brand built behind them.
Yeah, well, they're following a tradition of indie distribution companies like Miramax, of course, back in the early days. Fine Line was that way. They were producing a lot of. They had the Ninja Turtles, and then so they got tons of money, and then they started doing really artsy stuff. Fine Line, and so like I said, it goes in cycles. They're not like the flavor of the week A24, but they're past that because they're definitely well established, and they're starting to make things that don't fit the traditional A24 model. Which that'll be cool to see what new things they come up with. I don't think they've done any Christmas romance novel book movies yet, but they might. Who knows?
Man, that collection of movies is crazy. I love going on YouTube and watching A24 movies ranked. I love rankings of movies or anything like that, and the fact that they just have all these movies that come out. I want to say Everything Everywhere All at Once is probably my favorite movie from them, but I might be lying. I really liked Beau is Afraid. Beau is Afraid is very weird and just chaotic, but I guess as somebody who's so into the film industry, especially when you were doing a screening a night back in college, do you still feel like there's a whole world of film you've never even gotten to experience? Like, how much of the surface do you feel like you've scratched at this point?
Yeah, I'm catching up on my film going. Throughout the 2000s, I had a young family and was married, and just it was hard to find the time to go to films. And back then there weren't streamers, so
Yeah.
couldn't dial them up late at night. But I was fortunate in that through my work, I traveled to film festivals all the time.
Yeah, huh?
And so,
How many movies are you watching a day at a festival?
yeah, 3, 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was expecting like 10 because
No.
I imagine that it also includes like
Well,
shorter
shorts.
ones.
Yeah, shorts
for sure.
could be hundreds, But, I mean, I've been going to Sundance pretty much every year since '93.
Where's Sundance at?
It's been in Park City, Utah,
Okay.
traditionally, and they also have screenings in Salt Lake, and then at the Sundance Resort, so that it's all in that same area. And they're considering a move next year,
Oh wow.
2026, I think.
Is there a reason? Is there a reason why Utah
I think
isn't?
it's just so big, and Park City is like a small ski town.
Oh.
I mean, it's small,
Hmm.
and so it really just overwhelms the small community. And they've been doing it for 30 plus years. So
Have you been to Cannes?
I've never been to Cannes. No, I've been to the American Film Market, which is the biggest film market in this hemisphere,
Oh, okay.
many times.
Really? I would have actually assumed Sundance. Is Sundance a
So
film
that's
market
not a
as well?
market.
Oh, okay.
It's not a formal market.
Okay.
They sell films there, but it doesn't have a market.
Oh, so that's the purpose of the market is to like get this film to bigger producers or something like that?
Well, it's a marketplace, so global film buyers come to Cannes, the market portion of Cannes, and the American film market, and then there's some other film markets throughout the world. And it works differently in different countries. Sometimes there's for smaller countries, there's only one or two people that book all the films and all the television. So you can. That's why it's always so complicated when you have like an indie film, and you're like, well, who's doing your distribution? And it's like, oh, well, I've got this guy doing domestic, and then I've got two people helping me with foreign, but then I've got one guy that's only doing Asia. It's very complicated. So
Seriously.
Would it for young directors who are trying to get their film out? Is it one of the best ways to, I guess, like sell your film is to enter it through a film festival?
festivals are definitely a good way because they give you exposure that you can't get elsewhere because it is a screening. It may not be in a movie theater anymore, but most of them are. Especially the large festivals like Toronto and Sundance and Tribeca, South by Southwest, Austin
Yeah.
Film Fest. Those have people that are looking to acquire films. So even
You're
they're not,
catching them while they're interested.
even though they're not technically a market, they're coming to see what's new. It's like going to the the street market or a flea market. You got to go where everybody has everything that they're offering, and look at it. And Sundance has been famous for selling films, but Toronto, it happens at Toronto all the time. South by Southwest, it happens. I mean, but it can happen other ways. There are multiple ways to do it. You can get discovered on YouTube, and people forget that studios have tons of interns and people that are scouring YouTube, for the next, mainly horror or whatever, the next big
Yeah, I
thing.
feel like those are big on
Like the
YouTube.
guy that did the thing with all the rooms and you remember that one a couple years ago? It's
With the lights?
no,
Lights out?
no, it was I wish I could remember all these.
Because Lights Out, I think, used to be like it started off as a YouTube little short, and then it became a feature
Became
film.
something else.
Is that what at the marketplace? Is that what it usually is? People with like shorts, and then they'll buy it and turn it into a feature. Is that what they're buying,
Usually that doesn't happen,
or are they buying
but
like a
but
script,
it can. No,
So
usually
what are
they're
they
buying a
shopping at?
finished film.
Full length?
So yeah, so when most of the markets or large film festivals, most distributors don't acquire shorts. They may pay attention to them, but they
Oh, okay.
don't buy them. But shorts, shorts vary. Shorts are usually used as calling cards to get your next project. And in that respect, going to a festival is really helpful because you can say, hey, come see my short. Or if a short wins an award at a festival, it gets noticed. But generally, it's the features. And, that's called acquisition. So it's kind of an easy way it's like, hey, this movie's done. Audiences love it. Yeah, I'll buy that.
So they're saying this movie's done, audiences love it, and it hasn't been distributed yet. That's like the key thing.
Yep, it's
Okay.
available.
Okay.
Yeah,
So they buy like distribution rights
yep.
and sometimes all the rights.
Sometimes all, sometimes just domestic, U.S. rights, and then
If they buy all the rights, do they have the right to like take your director's name off and everything like that at that point too? Or like does that not happen? Is it more of an ethical process all the time? Not to assume that there's unethical
yeah,
stuff, but
no. Generally, they're maintained, and they're, each film includes a ton of paperwork that
Okay.
goes with it, and that's called chain of title, and among other things. But there are agreements in place, and so the distributor buys the film with with those agreements. So in terms of your cast and how they're identified, it's pretty hard to change that. And sometimes there are films that are from filmmakers that don't have all that. Like just the people that just made a movie, in their living room or whatever, and then it gets discovered. Those are unusual, but maybe in that event, something like that might happen. Sometimes people acquire films and then they just don't do anything with them. And that's kind of weird too.
I mean, easy check for you, I suppose. But
Yeah.
what about when there's not a finished project? Like, is there a standard way or there recommended ways? The way if you have a film, you want to try to shop it around, try to get in festivals. What happens if you don't? What happens if you have a concept, a script, but you don't have anything filmed yet? Is there even ways to do that?
Yeah, there are ways to do it.
I mean, obviously, you could sell a script, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are different ways to sell what they call speculative scripts. And the Blacklist is an online marketplace that's really leading the pack in terms of actually finding some success for spec projects. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it was set up by some guys that used to read spec scripts like for studios.
Talking about Blacklist?
Yeah,
Okay.
Blacklist, and they thought, wow, in this day and age, we could create a whole ecosystem of spec scripts, and they could be rated and reviewed and rise to the top and that sort of thing. And we had a local El Paso writing team that had a really high placing film on the Blacklist, called El Pavo Bravo, which was Austin Savage,
Oh yeah.
and then his he ended up making a short, and he's still in the process of trying to get that film together. So
Man.
it can happen. And if you're super lucky and your script gets into the right hands, then you might just go straight to a sale to a studio or an option. Options are popular, where someone says, "Hey, I'll give you $50,000 to option this script and give me a year, and if I don't sell it, then it goes back to the writer."
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Speaking of having an El Paso director get his work into the door through script only, I want to use that as a way to move into El Paso a bit. You make your way here permanently. Well, not permanently, but you take your step into El Paso 2017. Where do you feel we're headed, and how much of a transformation have we had over the 7 years of your time here?
Well, I first moved to Las Cruces.
Okay.
So
in 17?
in 17,
Okay.
February of 17. So I helped them kind of jumpstart Film Las Cruces.
Yeah, and it feels like they're a little more ahead in a weird way. I feel like there's something about that city when it comes to film that they're doing something cool there.
Yeah, well, they had some great leadership, and they realized that they needed a full service film office to service the industry, and they had kind of some false starts, and so I actually interviewed for that job in 2016. I didn't get it, and then I came back, interviewed. They hired somebody, and that person moved on, and then they reopened the position, and I got it in 2017. So they're a completely different market because their state is driven by that really, really healthy tax credit incentive for film, which the state of Texas doesn't have as good an incentive. And it's not as easy to access. But so I was there for 7 months and worked with a guy named Jonathan Sepp, who is amazing, and he ended up taking over my spot because I moved to El Paso in September of 2017 because I wanted to get back to Texas. I just preferred the business climate in Texas, and I liked. I've always lived in a metro area, and wanted to get back to that. So started in 2017 in the fall, and prior to the pandemic, we were still kind of doing traditional film commission things. And throughout my career, I've really tried to push the envelope with leadership in whatever film office I worked in to pay more attention to the local film community, because I think that's where the future lies. And we've seen that that's happening. Obviously, digital filmmaking completely changed our universe.
It opened the door for everyone.
1995 was not only the year that my first child was born, but it was the year that digital media became accessible to everyone. So mini DV was it. It was frame accurate digital editing and acquisition, and that changed the game. Totally changed the game. Prior to that, it was nearly impossible to shoot on tape, film.
Yeah.
You could do it, but it was hard. So that really, I knew that was going to basically democratize filmmaking. And, we didn't anticipate streaming as well as we should have. Obviously, Netflix did. But we knew that was going to change the world. And you started to see at festivals with guys like Lars von Trier, with the Dogma 95 movement, where they had this very strict criteria for making indie films. All these things happening, and some of the things didn't work. Mumblecore, you remember Mumblecore, which is where the Duplass brothers, got their start. All these things that were happening, that Texas was an important part of many of these things. And so I knew that it was going to be changing, and that's why I wanted to focus more on our local film community while at the same time servicing out-of-town productions. But we just didn't have enough out-of-town stuff to really justify what we were doing. And the other thing is, by supporting the local film community, we're like building our own industry, and people that they may come and go, but the net result is that the community grows and gets stronger and improves, so people get more experience. People learn how to do things better and faster, more efficiently. And the other part of that is, when you're working for a city, you have city managers, city council people, all these people that have a real interest in the community, but they may not know about filmmaking. And sometimes it's hard for them to just grasp that it's like, so you just help people that come in from out of town, what's that all about? And it's like, well, in the old days, it was like, well, it's like tourism. It's like, yeah, we get people from out of town to come in and spend their money. And because that wasn't happening as much as it was in the 80s and 90s, it had become like, well, is this really something we want to do? And so supporting our local community has everybody's ear, because they're like, well, yeah, we want to keep people here. We don't want to have this brain drain where we're training people in our high schools and our junior colleges and our universities for them to leave. We want them to stay here. And by building a film community, or creative community for that matter, including music, that they may leave, but they'll want to come back. And that's basically the foundation of everything that I work on, is trying to not only service the traditional film industry and television, but grow the industry here. We're not going to get big sound stages right now unless something changes with our incentive, and that's a whole nother thing. I mean, we're really in a good place right now. I've been attending some legislative meetings and sessions that are really pointing toward our state legislature supporting our film incentive and improving it to get us kind of on par with Georgia and New Mexico.
Yeah, Georgia's a big film state,
Even-
right?
yeah.
They have like the Georgia film thing.
They have the film incentive, and you see the Georgia Peach
Yeah,
on
that's the one.
all their productions. So
It was on The Walking Dead.
yeah.
I always see it at the
Yeah.
every Walking Dead episode.
Well, and we had Fear the Walking Dead in Texas for 4 years,
Really?
and
Where specifically?
Austin,
Really?
and they ended up leaving for go back to Georgia because they got more
Yeah,
more
they got more
tax
incentive.
credits.
Man, that's crazy. Like in Austin, there was just big zombie herds going on.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Man. Wow. Yeah, those herds are crazy. What is I guess how does an incentive of like a state film incentive necessarily operate? Or I guess what is it? Does like funding go into a pool or what's happening?
Well, it can take different forms. Our state is we're not unique, but there are very few other jurisdictions that work the way we do. Because we don't have an income tax, we can't create a tax credit.
Oh yeah, I wanted to know more about this.
Most of the states that are really blowing and going with their incentives are using an income tax credit, and that just it works differently than our system. Our system is a grant, so we have to fund the grant program every 2 years, and then we distribute that grant money. So the challenge for us is getting the money every 2 years because we're fighting with children's health care and disaster relief and education and all these things. Fortunately, the last session we did get an enormous bump in our funding. We were kind of sitting at 45 to 60 million for each biennium because our state has a 2-year budget cycle, and we moved to 200 million. So that has really gotten the attention of Hollywood and television producers.
Yeah, so much you could do now.
And and so that's encouraging, and I feel like we're on a path right now that we may get that again for the next biennium because our session starts in 2025. So it's it's complicated. One of the things that really incentivized areas do that is something that I haven't done in my career. I haven't worked in really highly incentivized areas. Is it becomes more of a factory mentality, and it's almost like real estate deals. So there are some film projects that are just like the normal ones where it's very artistic and the people are all committed to the story, and they want to make this. They have a vision. They want to make this film. But in highly incentivized states, sometimes it's just business people that say, well, I can raise some money. This is a great money-making deal. Let's make a movie.
MCU.
And yeah. And so it's less about the art and more about the deal.
The formula.
I guess. Yeah, is what I would say. And it's just a different feeling. And one of the things I really like about filmmaking in Texas is we're all in it for the film, for the storytelling and for the and just making great stuff. Whereas, like I said, in some other places, it's just cranking them out. It's like, oh yeah, we got another action movie. We're gonna crank it out, and that's fine because the world needs those and they still sell. But I would love to have a couple of Christmas movies here in town. So I don't want to jinx it because production is production, and if someone feels like they can make the deal work and they can do it over and over again, then we'd be happy to oblige. But traditionally, Texas productions have just had a different feeling. In fact, our co-op marketing group throughout the state is called the Texas Association of Film Commissions. So all of the city film offices and the state office, we
So
market.
Creative El Paso's in this?
Yeah,
or is it
yeah.
also Destination El Paso's?
Yeah, Creative El Paso's
Okay.
in there, and Austin Film Commission, Houston, and we all get together. And we went to LA this summer, and the 200 million really got people's attention, and so we had some great meetings. And what we coined this phrase, we call it, shooting in Texas, you get our incentive, which is good. It's not fabulous, but it's good. But you also get this thing that's called the Tex factor, which is that feeling of making a high quality project with people that care, and that want to see everyone succeed.
That Texas feel.
Tex factor.
Do you think that's one of the reasons why something like these bigger studios in Hollywood are like failing? At least I would imagine that they're not receiving the benefits that they would expect given the budgets that they're pouring into these productions, is because it became a machine.
Yeah, I mean,
The audience sniffed it out.
it's hard to break that cycle of the sequels and the retelling. And
Oh, yeah.
the rehashing, and I mean,
They redid Jeepers Creepers, man. Leave that movie alone.
I know.
What are you
it's
talking
got to
about?
be left alone.
They shouldn't have even done the third one.
Yeah.
Should have just stopped at 2, man. You waited too long. Sorry, I digress.
No, but that's exactly right. Yeah, it's definitely. And the problem is you spend 250 million on a movie and it only makes 35 million. Then all the other people that were in line to make a movie with that studio are at jeopardy. Paramount is we'll see what happens. I mean, obviously Paramount has Tom Cruise, but
We get 200 mil in the biennium again and blow it on Mission Impossible.
yeah.
Well, I mean, arguably I guess the first part of the second, because it's like the Reckoning Part 2 or something like that. This
Yes,
Mission Impossible.
Part 2,
If I'm not mistaken, the first one that came out a couple summers ago, it was considered a flop,
Yeah, it didn't do great.
given the how much the budget was and how much they made back.
Yeah, but Top Gun,
Yeah.
made billions. So yeah. Well, and the thing I saw podcast just yesterday, and of course now I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about Tom Cruise, and they said, the thing about those movies is they're good. I mean, they're not fine art, but they're well made and they are totally engaging, and you do want to see them over.
Yeah, that's Hollywood right there.
Yeah, it's like
Big old
that's what
effects
we
and all that.
expect. If you're going to spend $500 million on a movie, it should have all that. And he's one of the few guys that can actually make it work. You think about all the Star Wars stuff, and it's like, oh, some of those are misfires. And
Big
it's like,
time, huh?
especially on now with the series, they're still trying to figure out how to make those work.
The Penguin got it done.
The Penguin.
What a
did.
great show.
Yeah. So it's hard to know what the future holds. The thing that I'm encouraged about is that even though we're contracting right now, the industry's contracting, I think that's going to help people make better choices.
It's gonna have to bring the best out of people that have maybe gotten too budget driven. Like, this is how much money I have. Okay, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
spend as much money as I can.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they keep making those MCU movies, but
Damn, man, they had it so good. They just could have stopped. They could have stopped. Damn.
yeah,
I how do you feel about the rise of TV series in a way? Like, I know TV was a thing, right? But it feels like it's kind of gotten a rebrand in a way with like limited series and
oh, totally
stuff like
yeah.
the streaming originals. They're so good. Like, I love Stranger Things.
Yeah.
The Penguin was great. So, are you more of a series type of guy, or do you like your films?
Well, series are critical for the growth of our industry in the state.
In the state.
Right now, the state of Texas produces more series and limited series than features.
Okay.
and they're really good business because they last a long time
Mm-hmm.
and they keep people working for years on end.
You could tell more of the story.
And yeah, and you've got less pressure. So you might have one episode that's like, yeah, it was all right, but yeah, I'm going to watch the next one because I want to see what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a completely different mindset, and it allows more of the kind of that passion and that artistic aspect of this of this art form to really come to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I haven't seen The Penguin, but I've watched some of those others, and especially the Marvel stuff. To me, their best stuff is the television stuff.
Really?
I think.
Mm.
I like Jessica Jones and Daredevil, and I know they're going to do Daredevil reboot.
People are worried about that.
Yeah,
They're
bring it
worried.
back, but at least they're bringing the same cast back. I think so.
I think. Do you think it's difficult for Hollywood to understand that you need a solid team to get a home run? Because it almost seems like they're getting these super inflated budgets, and they're putting a director who doesn't have that much experience at the helm of it.
Sometimes they're even putting a big director who's not built for that.
Right.
Yeah, and the problem is every now and then those work really well and they make billions of dollars.
Sam Raimi was perfect for Multiverse of Madness. I thought that was a great choice. I thought that was a good movie.
Yeah. Well, and I met the Russo brothers when they were nobody back in 94, 95 when they were at Slam Dance. That's where their first film premiered called Pieces, which apparently is not available anywhere. And I just, I think their stuff is okay, but I've never rewatched one of their Marvel movies. But
Dang.
that's me.
I've seen Infinity War maybe like at least 5 times.
I just some
Plus
of
2
the,
times that were just in the
it just
background.
seems like some of the things that they skimped on, like some of the locations are just dreadful. I think, and it's mostly because they're shooting. They have to shoot in certain areas like Atlanta or Albuquerque or whatever, and I think it suffers. But I don't know. The series, I think the Marvel series specifically, they were like 2012 to 2016 is when they were really at their height. They were all New York based and they were all shot, in Hell's Kitchen or nearby.
What was that series? It was a group of them called, right? They
Yeah,
called
the
them
Defenders.
something.
Yeah,
Defenders.
It's on Netflix. Yeah.
Yeah. They had like Luke Cage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuff
Jessica
too?
Jones.
Okay.
yeah.
See, I didn't see.
And
I
Iron
didn't catch that
Fist
one.
and Daredevil and Jessica.
I missed all of those shows. I didn't catch.
There's doing what you've done in your career. Is it hard to watch movies now and not be a little like,
Oh,
oh, this location sucks?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It frustrates me,
You've gotten more critical.
especially at film festivals, because I'm like, I'll sit there and I'm like, why am I watching this movie? It's not good. It's not a good film. I watched with great anticipation a couple of years ago. There was a Sandra Bullock adventure movie where she was stranded on an island
Oh, with Channing Tatum.
with Channing Tatum. I don't know if you guys saw that, but it just was so disappointing to me. It just seemed like the humor was just off. And I grew up on movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark and Romancing the Stone. And I was talking to somebody about Romancing the Stone that year at that festival because I was hoping that this. Remember what it was called? Paradise Lost?
I can't remember what it's
Something.
called, but yeah,
Lost Paradise or something.
yeah.
I was like, I hope it's as good as Romancing the Stone. You don't even know what I'm talking about, do you? It's Kathleen Turner, Michael Douglas,
Romancing the Stone. I know. I think I know who Michael Douglas is.
Alfonso Arau. It was an amazing adventure story. Yeah. Anyway, so it is hard for me
I'm gonna watch it.
to watch. Yeah, it's fun. It just that it works and it all makes sense and it's a ride. It's like a great amusement ride, and the acting is just wonderful, and it just all fits. It's funny and it's romantic, and those are my favorites. But I don't know where I was going with that, but it's hard to watch some of the films, and some of them I have to make myself because maybe technically they're not as good as I think they should be. Because nowadays, the bar is high, and you can make stuff look pretty good without spending a lot of money, but it does take a lot of effort. You have to be smart about it. Some projects, they'll work despite being technically inferior. But it's hard, it's hard to,
You could always go the found footage route.
yeah,
Go real low budget with it.
yeah, yeah. I'm scouting for a project in El Paso that's a found footage
Really?
movie. Yeah. And I haven't seen the script yet, but sounds interesting. And yeah, it's going to be multicam. They're going to use some GoPros. They're going to use some old like high 8 cameras. And for that, yeah, it's definitely. But, like my favorite, it's not found footage, but it's I don't know what you call it, where the characters actually shoot the film as part of the film.
Yeah.
Like
Was
POV?
the one that Abrams did.
Oh,
Cloverfield?
Cloverfield. Yeah.
I thought that one, and of course Blair Witch was the granddaddy of all those. But
Oh, yeah, the granddaddy for sure, but I do think the crown jewel might be Paranormal Activity.
yeah, Paranormal Activity
Without question,
is
huh?
where it went to new heights.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Man, Blair Witch Project's freaky. The logo, like the freaking Dreamcatcher
Yep.
thing.
Mhm.
Oh, man.
I saw Blair Witch on one of the because what they did was they would circulate VHS copies of the movie in community.
Hey, I actually saw something earlier today, I think, from the directors that they are releasing the way it was meant to be or something like that. Are you
Oh.
familiar with that?
No.
I need to go back and read that because it was a statement I think that was released by them saying like we weren't able to release this version or something of the sort.
So they're going to re-release it.
Possibly. I'll double check that and tell you later.
Yeah, I'd watch
Director's
that.
cut?
Mm-hmm.
Like a super director's cut?
Yeah, super.
It's just like real
how
stuff.
could
It's
it
not
be
even
even
fake
more?
anymore.
Yeah.
Man, that'd be crazy. I know that you had talked about Raiders of the Lost Ark and Romancing the Stone as some of your favorites, but are either of those two the clear your favorite film of all time? Do you have a favorite film of all time?
Well, I'm a huge Spielberg fan because that
Okay.
was my era.
Oh, he's your Spielberg is my Tarantino.
Mm.
Quite possibly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And E.T. is
Yeah, I was
still,
about to say
still
E.T.
one of
must
my
have been massive.
favorite films, and I mean that was the dream team. That was Spielberg and Kasdan and no, who was the writer on E.T.? It was a woman, I think,
Man.
Matheson, and his DP Alan Davio, who he shot his very first film with. Have you ever seen Spielberg's first film? It's
No.
called Amblin.
No.
It's a 30-minute, and there's no dialogue in it, and it's amazing.
Is it abstract or is it at least clear? Like,
No, it's like you can see all of his traits in every scene of
Yeah.
that film.
is it still very sci-fi?
Nope. It's a story of a guy who
It's not
picking
even
up he's a hitchhiker, and he and a girl end up together.
okay. It's not even fair to call him just a sci-fi director, right? It's just that he's gotten big sci-fi hits, of course. E.T.
I don't think of him as a sci-fi director.
Okay. What else? Sorry, I think it's because I only know like really.
Yeah,
like,
well-
E.T. probably. What are
Well, of
his
course,
other biggest?
Jaws
movies?
was,
Jaws, dude. Are you
stuff-
kidding
yeah,
me?
so he's
How
a-
did I forget?
he's
that?
an
Back to the
adventure,
Future,
yeah.
Jurassic Park.
Dude, this guy's a legend, man. Like I knew he was obviously like.
And then he had a few misses. He had 1941, and then there was one about firefighters that I can't remember the
I
name.
won't count either of them because I didn't even know.
What do you think it is that has that like vibe to it? Is it the film itself that they're shooting on, or because there's something about Spielberg films that just has this like homey, like nostalgia vibe to it? Maybe even the angles that he uses.
Like it's a movie. He always makes a movie you grow up with for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, homie, is that what you meant?
Yeah, I mean, he's, and when I look at young filmmakers and they'll show me something that they made, sometimes the projects are just, they're not cinematic. They're not And that's what Spielberg completely understands is cinema isn't just the actors saying these things. It's not just how they move in the scene. It's not just where the camera is. It's not just what lens you're using. It's not just how the camera moves. It's everything. And so, when I can imagine, I would imagine that as he's thinking of a scene, his mind is just going nuts with the cameras moving, the actors are doing this, they're saying this, we can see the airplane coming in, we can hear the music swell. It's like he just has it all in his brain prior to filming, which isn't always true, obviously, because some things happen on his sets that they end up in the films anyway. But and then he. Another thing I tell young filmmakers all the time is like just keep trying, but always pursue excellence. Like you always want your project to be excellent, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. And Spielberg obviously does that. I mean, he's famous for getting things just right, when he can. But it was a fascinating time when he, came of age, because he created the Blockbuster. His movie Jaws was the first movie that I saw where we waited in line around the theater. It was a single screen cinema in Lubbock. And it's called the Cinema West, right there on 19th and Quaker. I'll never forget it. And, it was, I mean, I watch Jaws, at least once a year because it's such an amazing film. And I see new things in it all the time as I age, and I pick up on things. And he just had everything together, the acting, the way the camera moved, his keen understanding of lenses and light and blocking, I mean, how characters move through a scene. It's like a dance, and so I was saying I see some young filmmakers and I'm like, this is really, I like the story. Technically you pulled it off, but it didn't feel cinematic.
The soul,
Yeah.
if you will.
I saw a short last month that was at the El Paso Film Fest. And it's an El Paso native, but he's going to school in Austin. And his film was very simple, but the camera moved in two particular ways at two particular times in the film. And I noticed it, but I think most people in the audience didn't notice that the camera moved. And it was a drastic move. It was a 180. So he had a scene, and he moved the camera this way twice, which was important because it gave you the same sense of what was happening to the characters both times. And it was a two shot with two actors, and the camera started all the way to the left or to behind one actor with the other on the far side of the frame right. And then it moved behind them in a semicircle, and then it brought the other character into focus in frame. And then when he did it, reversed it. And that had an impact because it drew you in to that particular character at a point where you were still trying to figure out if you like this character or what was her motivation and is she for real? And then when it came back to the other guy, the same questions were answered. And they were answered by the camera moving, not by what they said. And that, to me, that's cinema. You can't do that with a play. Can't do that on a radio show. You can kind of do it in a novel, and that by describing what happens. Mm-hmm. But to me, that's what great filmmaking is using all of those tools that you have. Obviously Zemeckis just made a movie where the camera's in the same spot the entire film.
Or like even Wes Anderson, where he's got a very specific, very front-facing film style.
Yeah,
and everything.
Yeah, and those are done specifically for the same type of impact. It gives you a different feel. Mm-hmm. And Woody Allen would do things like set the camera up, and the characters would just play the entire scene, and sometimes they wouldn't even be in the frame. They'd just be walking across the frame. So there are different things, but just the fact that they walked out of frame and that he chose that frame, that's basically making the same type of decision as moving the camera. So he decided not to move it. Whereas, some filmmakers without as much experience would have said, well, but we can't see her, so we need to pan over so that we see her, so.
Or like, I guess in cinema, we're knowing when to have deep blur in the background and knowing when everything should be in focus.
Yeah.
I think that's like, for me as a photographer, it's like when I started with photo first, like you love bokeh.
Yeah.
You want all that. But then it doesn't translate the same with film a lot. And when you have deep bokeh, sometimes it looks like it was shot for like YouTube. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a technique you don't want to overuse.
Mm-hmm.
But
and then knowing when and not to.
Yeah, but for things like that are romance or dreamy or whatever, and it has to be lit. You got to get a good bokeh. I mean, a bad one is useless.
Yeah.
But and I was also a big fan of the French New Wave and Italian films of the 50s and 60s because for them, their digital revolution was portable 16 millimeter cameras. That they could handhold, and it was the advent of what's called crystal sync, so that you could actually shoot a movie handheld and stay in sync with the audio. So, that to me, and Breathless is one of my favorite films of all time. And
is that an Italian or?
It's French.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was Godard, and it's just so refreshing. Tarantino is definitely influenced by, I think, by some of those guys and some of their crime stories and how he.
I wonder if that's what he was referencing in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Have you seen the movie?
Yeah.
When Leo goes to Italy for a while and comes back, I wonder if that's what, a bit of that you're referencing. Those are spaghetti westerns though.
Yeah. No, he definitely
Spaghetti
pays
westerns. I get it
homage
now,
to
'cause
some
it's
of those. Yeah, that's one of the few Tarantino movies that I really enjoyed. I'm not a huge Tarantino
Really?
fan. Yeah.
Is there something about it that's a little too? I don't know. Is there anything that like you specifically aren't really gravitating towards?
Well, I just really liked it was basically a buddy film, and I think he could have shortened it a bit, but which I think many people have
The Hateful Eight, man.
mentioned that, yeah.
That
But
one
anyway,
for sure.
yeah. So he definitely he's got a few more in him. I think he says he's going to be one more, right? But
Yeah, that's what he claims.
yeah, I don't believe that.
So with young filmmakers here in El Paso, currently right now, what are some of the opportunities you're trying to like create, and what are some that exist that you've started to put your hand towards to help build on? What can young filmmakers here currently be trying to get their toes into so that they can just get more experience, get more reps, and grow beyond where they're at right now?
Well, the community college EPCC has a really great film program, and I don't know if you know Michael Head, but he's teaching over there now, and he's got a lot of experience in short filmmaking and feature filmmaking as a director, but primarily as a DP too. So programs like that are important because it includes the study, so you start to learn what makes cinema by watching films and critiquing them. But they also create their own work, over and over regularly, and that's another important thing is when you're not in a formal training program, it's hard to stay motivated and to get people to to help and all that. So the training and formal classes are definitely helpful, and UTEP also has their digital media program is good. I talk to those students, try to talk to them every semester if I can, and they've got a great writing emphasis over there as well. And again, it's when you write every week and you get critiqued on it, that's how you improve. And you start to see what's not working. And, oh, well, these rules are important for a reason, because I didn't follow this rule and nobody understood what was happening in the story. And, I didn't intend for that to be the outcome. I intended for them to understand it. So that's important. We're also really fortunate to be so close to NMSU and their creative media program, which is a full blown film school.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really amazing. We started the El Paso 2-Day Movie Challenge in 2018, which is a weekend film competition. So it's for fun, but because it's a competition, it really caught on, and filmmakers found that was useful and good training. And so we're doing that again. We've got one this year scheduled in December, and then we also brought the 48-hour film challenge, film project, to El Paso a couple years ago, and we're going to try to continue to do that. That's an interesting event because the winner gets to go to the international screening event every year for that. So there's an opportunity to get some notoriety for that. We're also looking at creating programs supporting our museum and cultural arts department in continuing to provide grants for artists, filmmakers, and we want to encourage them to continue to support short film grants, which have been on hiatus for a while since the pandemic, but I think they're coming back this year, so that's good. We're also, we're investigating how we can get more production from out of town to come in. So I'm active in our state advocacy for improved incentives. As I mentioned earlier, it's looking good this year that we're going to get full funding, hopefully again, and make some tweaks to some of the programs that will make it more. One of the problems with the program is it doesn't incentivize people to move outside of the established production centers of Austin and Dallas. So they're looking at making some changes that will push people outside of those centers by giving them more money to shoot in El Paso or Houston or, Beaumont or wherever, the Valley. So I'm encouraged about that. And of course, the Warner Brothers project that we had this summer has gotten us a lot of mileage. A lot of people are talking about it. People are taking notice. We've started to do more advertising about the creative industry and specifically the filmmaking community in the city with our Movie Maker magazine ads that we do annually. So we're in every issue, and we also do sponsored editorial. We recently, last year we were one of the 25, or I think it's one of the 25 best places to live and work as a movie maker.
Whoa.
So that was cool.
Did that include places outside of the States as well? Are there?
Just in the U.S.?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that magazine is global, but it was just the U.S.
Okay.
So, Austin's always on there.
What was number one?
It was probably Austin. I'm not sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Nice.
We were on there, and our film festival, the El Paso Film Festival. We have a couple of great film festivals. We've got a number of film festivals. We have two big ones, the Plaza Classic and then the El Paso Film Festival. But the El Paso Film Festival recently got Movie Maker's list as one of the 25 coolest film festivals in the world. So that was kind of neat.
Yeah.
And it is a cool fest. I mean, it's small, but it's intimate, and there's great programming, and filmmakers love it. So
when does that usually happen?
it's usually in the fall. So
Okay.
it's usually the last weekend of September.
Oh, okay. So and it happened like a little over a month ago then.
Yeah, yeah. So and that'll be an annual event. So they're in their 7th year. They'll be eight years strong.
Dang, they already got recognized like that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So
do you guys work very hand in hand with them at this point then?
we do. So we this is the third year we've done the educational and informational panels that go along with the festivals.
Oh, what was
So
the
that
panel
was
called?
our Creating Ways
There you go.
conference. Yeah. So we did 11 panels this year and had 35 panelists, many of whom were from out of town and were
Nice.
working professionals. And that was really a lot of fun. And that's I think, something that I want to see more of our community take advantage of because it's free. Not only is it great content, but it's good networking as well. And I did record all those this year, so hopefully I'll cut them into smaller pieces and get them out
Yeah.
on the
On the gram?
interwebs.
Yeah, there you go. On the socials. When and then when we're going to Austin and whenever we travel around, I guess the question is what do like the conversations look like when you're talking to the state commissions? What do the conversations look like when you're sharing what's happening in El Paso? What are some of the things that you really are focused on highlighting? Is it filmmakers or is it more programs that you're trying to highlight? Is it
It's
ideas that haven't happened yet?
Yeah, it's everything. I mean, I was just at the Austin Film Festival, and we co-sponsored a big filmmaker event.
Yeah.
So there's over 850 people there, but because filmmakers knew that it was sponsored by film commissions, we had a lot of conversations. I rarely get a chance to even eat at those things, and that's not my purpose for
Yeah, of
being there.
course.
It's to talk to people. But so a lot of question and answer type conversations, and we've got a couple of projects that shot in early 2024 that are getting ready to hit the festival circuit, and some people have, I met filmmakers from New York and Los Angeles and overseas that knew about those, and were asking about what's the scene like in El Paso. We hear, people are coming to El Paso to do indie stuff primarily, and of course the Warner Brothers movie was on, everybody's mind because it was such an important filmmaker. So they, and I talked to the Austin Film Commissioner and the Houston Film Commissioner and the San Antonio Film Commissioner and the Amarillo Film Commissioner and the Fort Worth Film Commissioner, the Dallas Film, every week.
Yeah.
And we emailing and with leads and, hey, have you heard of this thing or what's going on with this? And so that network is really strong and very valuable. I use LinkedIn really effectively too.
Oh, really?
And I've just been around for so long that I just know a lot of people, and those are the people that help me spread the word because they'll reshare LinkedIn posts, and I get really good engagement when I talk about the things that are happening, whether it be the festival, our conference, Creating Ways, or a production that's happening. I just reposted something today that was a commercial that we did. And I say it's not me, but it's our film community and our film professionals here.
Yeah.
A Lucchese commercial, really, really cool spot. Great creative. Just shot out at Indian Cliffs Ranch. It was just amazing, really nice spot. And it was primarily local people behind the camera. So those conversations are varied, but they are increasing in number. And it's me talking about things that have piqued people's interest about what's happening here, which is cool because that's the intent of me doing those ads, is to get people thinking about, well, I keep seeing this stuff from El Paso and Creative El Paso. What's going on out there? What are y'all doing?
Yeah.
And so those are good conversations to have.
Weird's moving west. How do you feel about that sentence? Do you feel like we are trying to like gravitate towards what's going on there culturally as well, lifestyle wise?
Well, yeah, the advantage that we have is our proximity to the West Coast.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say Mexico.
Well, that's also an advantage.
Yeah.
That's a huge advantage.
But that's more of a thing that maybe we don't think about, the West Coast.
Yeah, and I was listening to Chuck Horek's program on film on KTEP last week, and Carlos de la Torre was guest hosting, and he had um, Walter Walter Perez on, who's an actor, born in L.A., now makes El Paso his home. And we got a number of people that are doing that type of thing, and they're staying here, but they're still working in the industry. And those people were all involved in our Creating Ways conference. So what that means is that if you miss that conference, you miss the opportunity to meet Walter, to meet Abe, to meet um, Rodrigo, to meet all of these people that are Texas based, some of them El Paso, many of them El Paso, but they're working on Mayans MC, or they're working on Quantum Leap, or they're pitching their own projects to studios, or they're doing a combination of all these things. And that is an interesting change. And those people, they could live anywhere, but they want to live here. Part of it is because the proximity. We're 40, no, I guess we're a 70-minute airplane ride to LA. And that's still where a lot of these things happen in terms of the business and the genesis of a lot of these projects. But Marfa has got a feature right now, and we've got a lot of people on that. Everybody flies to El Paso when they go to Big Bend. We're getting some spillover from New Mexico. We generally get one or two features every month that will do 1 or 2 days here. Sometimes it's an Albuquerque production, sometimes it's cruises. But generally they need either the border, a bridge, or they need our downtown. They need an urban center, because especially if you're in cruises, you don't have the choices that we have in terms of downtown looks. If you've got, oh, well, it's a skyscraper. It's like, well, we don't have skyscrapers, but we got some pretty tall buildings, so it'll work. And then our historic downtown is just amazing. So there are a lot of advantages that people don't always think about to our geographic location. And of course, we're true desert.
Yeah.
So, so many projects are written and there'll be a desert sequence. And it's like, can we do this in Austin? It's like, not really, And the last desert feature that we had ended up coming to me from the Austin Film Commission. So the film commissioner there, Brian, just called me and he said, "Hey, I got these people in my office and I read their script and we can't do it here. It's perfect for El Paso." And they came. So they shot for like 6 weeks.
Man, Texas is really working together right now on the film stuff. And it sounds like they've always been. But it also sounds throughout the entire conversation that one of the strongest things as a filmmaker or as anybody who's in the film profession, networking, man. I know that networking is probably a common principle for any industry, but it really does seem like, because the way you were explaining some of the earliest roles you had as PA, just by being a runner and like going and grabbing things for the shop, like you might be bumping shoulders with like the DP. You never know. You might be over here getting, like, example, you might be going and getting some breakfast tacos and you just bump shoulders with Roger Deakins out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like, that'd be crazy. Robert Deakins. Roger?
Roger.
I got it right. I got it right. But yeah, like I don't think it's very easy to be able to see the importance of networking when it's two very different roles of something. But when you put it in the sense of like, yeah, but those roles are like, they might even like, boom, bump their shoulder as they're walking by on set. You're very in close proximity with just about anybody in this industry.
Yeah, it's and it's the industry is based on apprenticeships, and it's almost like being a journeyman.
Unpaid roles and whatnot.
Yeah. But it's also really rewarding too. And I've found that over the years that's part of it that I enjoy working in the industry a lot. And you see many of the same people from year to year. And like you said, those roles change. And I mean, I just bumped into a young woman that I knew as an actress. I mean, 15 years ago, she made a movie in San Antonio, and she was awesome. She just produced two features. One just premiered at the Austin Film Festival, and I'm like, how did that happen? And she was like, well, I just kept at it. And of course, she's really smart and she's super talented, and she was really committed to making it happen.
Yeah. That's okay. So then we'll say networking and just pure consistency in this industry. It's so easy to just get discouraged by
Yeah.
I don't know anything, especially in a city that's still developing, such as in El Paso, where our film industry is really starting to see like that we're about to break through these ceilings. Um, when it's like that and it hasn't really broken through yet, and even when you go to Hollywood, and you get eaten up by Hollywood, it's really easy to get discouraged and just go to something maybe more realistic. So, yeah, being able to just like and envision yourself like 10 years later down the line, it's very important to be able to see that. It's what helps you stay consistent.
Yeah. And in Texas, people are used to, because the industry hasn't been so prolific, they're used to wearing multiple hats
Yeah.
too.
All
And
creators here know that
yeah, and
like the
that,
back of their hand, man.
and you get in larger markets, and you get on sets and in other creative endeavors, and you're like, yeah, I can do that, or you can't do that. It's like, yeah, I've done that before, and let's figure out how to make this happen. Basically, I mean, and that's the thing. Texas Cruise. I remember on one movie that I worked. We were shooting in a small town in Central Texas, and the location guys did their best to clear the streets, and it was a sequence where a guy had to pull up and jump out of his car, and there was a parked car, and or a couple of them, and they went into the stores and they found everybody except for this one car. Fortunately, it was a Volkswagen Beetle, and so everybody was like, "Well, we can just move this." So we got like 15 guys, and and there were probably some women in there too. And we just lifted it up
Whoa.
and we moved it about half a block down the street.
Jeez.
And we just put it right there and put a note and said, "Hey, we moved your car. Sorry." So it's like, and the people from LA, there were some crew people, and they're like, "Wow, I've never seen anything like that before." And because we were just like, "Well, we need to move this car. It's a Volkswagen. We can move it. We don't have time to call a tow truck, and we didn't want to, go to that expense." And then the car owner would have been pissed because they would have had to pay the bill, all that stuff. So it was like, we just make stuff happen. Um, it's just part of the industry here, that the part of it that I really like.
And then just to close off a bit, those same qualities that we described, do you see them fully present in El Paso at the moment? Or are they still developing that camaraderie, that crew-based power?
It's being created
Okay.
as we speak. It's it's a challenge sometimes, because when you're trying to make a living and you're freelancing,
Yeah.
and you lose a gig to someone else,
Yeah. Competitiveness
sometimes it can be easy to say, well, screw you, man. I could have done that better, whatever. Um, but you have to realize that that job will be done, and there'll be another one, and you'll have an opportunity to do something else. That's why, not only focusing on out of town stuff, but also local production is really key to, I think, our success, because we've got to have the high paid gigs that hopefully will start coming, and then also the smaller indie things where you can get a great piece on your reel, or you can move up. Maybe you were an AC and you want a DP, or you want a gaff on the project. Those are the opportunities that you can take. So it's a give and take.
that only happens when you like aren't so neck and neck with everyone, and it's not such a dogfight all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, hopefully we'll be able to support some of our financial programs for grants, and then I'm also working on some larger funding things that we can bring to the table to see if we can get approved to try to move people forward and to get people trained and get more experience and in a more direct way. And hopefully over the next 3 to 5 years we'll be there, because start to see the benefits of it.
When you're listing out your goals through the role, is that one of them? Like, do you want to transform El Paso from so competitive to more collaborative? Does that pop up, or is that just like a byproduct of the other goals that you have?
It's not my primary focus,
Okay.
because
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I've seen is that the community's already moving in that direction.
It's on autopilot in that sense.
It seems to be moving that way, and part of it is, the community. It's not that I'm a leader of the community, but I'm a focal point that people can respond to and relate to, as someone who is always thinking about this exact thing. And I have numerous conversations every week with, either by email or by phone, with filmmakers that are working on things, music videos, short films. They're writing a new script. And because we are starting to develop these other programs like the film festivals and other competitions and weekly or monthly gatherings and music events, these are all they're cumulative. So they're all adding to building that community in the way that you described, whereas there will be less of the infighting and competitiveness and more of the working together.
Yeah, in order to put El Paso more on the map. Man, that's so interesting to know, and that's so exciting to hear about. Because for us as MF, we got a chance to speak a little bit about a week ago or so, and it was just like, yeah, I think we're really trying to dive into really embracing our mission through that film lens. I think we began with midnight sessions, and it went ahead and started to become a strong music platform. But I think film is really where we can diversify our projects and our platform, like our portfolio a bit. And just, I don't know, just hearing all of this just helps me understand what it's going to take a little bit better. You know, David's education's in DMP, digital media production, and then I'm like in marketing, but business, So I really feel like not so much through university, but I did miss out on a lot of those technicalities and logistics and the culture of filmmaking in a way that I feel like MF helped introduce me to. But I feel like we're about to bust through that door of filmmaking for 2025. And so these last couple conversations have honestly been like super valuable, Drew. So super thankful about
Yeah,
that for sure,
same
man.
here. I the thing about MF that is so exciting to me, and that I'm proud that we're here tonight and that you're in El Paso, is your content is, you're always improving, and I see you're pursuing excellence, which is, that's my catchphrase for this decade.
Pursuing excellence.
Yeah,
I
because
like
there's
that.
there's no reason to in our endeavors, there's no reason to make stuff that's mediocre. I mean, there really isn't. I mean, if you're making a widget, then maybe there is reason to make a mediocre widget, but we're not. We're making things that are important and that tell stories and that communicate ideas and ways of life that we want to promote. And but, but the keen understanding that you all have is that there's a responsibility to create excellent content, because it's so powerful and it's all that we consume now. It's so important that people see and get this type of feeling of excellence from what y'all do. And anyway, I love it. I love midnight sessions. Looking forward to more and more of that. And then whatever you guys are coming up with.
Oh, we're cooking.
Hey, chefing it up over here,
Yeah.
boys. I was able to talk to you a little bit more about it, but man, yeah, it's really cool, and it's really great to go to and be in, be able to go to and shake your hand and have conversations with you like that. Because no, yeah, I think young creators need to be able to have that sense of guidance, and I think for a long time it's just we didn't really know where to begin with that. And just like you say, we have to wear multiple hats. So a lot of time you don't even have the mental capacity to think about like searching for resources because you're too busy thinking, how am I gonna afford to do this stuff or whatever. So
Yeah.
the the obvious step of like, well, let me try to ask for help becomes kind of like pushed to the back a little bit, and you forget about it sometimes. But I'm really appreciative of what Creative El Paso is doing, and it's opened my eyes on as to what MF Pearl can do more, and I'm very thankful for you helping us open the eyes and open the mind a little bit about the possibilities for the community. And so, hey man, Drew, man, one more thank you for joining us. There's an applause right there. I think you can
Oh,
hear
I
through
heard
the
it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's do it again.
Yeah, we're gonna have endless sequels with you for sure. um,
Thanks for making the time.
yeah, man,
You're a busy
seriously.
guy.
Been all around Texas. Drew, if you wanted to go ahead and plug anything for all of the young filmmakers or all the young creatives, where would you like to point people to in terms of any like websites or Instagram pages or anything like that that you want to promote?
Yeah, right now the Creative El Paso Instagram is probably our primary communication tool.
Okay.
Creative with no E on the end, and then the word El Paso.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of dropped that E and added the one from El Paso. And then for the older folks out there, we've got the Facebook as well.
Oh yeah.
I do also have a newsletter, so you can sign up if you go to creativeelpaso.org on the web. There's a link to sign up for that, and I send that about every 6 weeks or so, depending on what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also getting ready to increase our staff. I'm going to get a part-time person
Ooh.
to help me. That's going to be great. We have a lot of not busy work, but we do a lot of permitting and a lot of things happen that you just have to get done, and it takes time away from some of these big picture things that I like to think about. But so I'm looking forward to this next year or so, and having a little more time to kind of go big picture and think about some of those things that we can continue to do and improve to build the community.
And then this will be on the 27th. This will come out on the 27th. Is there any info that you could share for the film festivals that are coming up in December or anything like that?
We've got a screening of our 2-day challenge movies, which is a weekend competition. We're doing the music video edition, so there'll be a bunch of music videos that you can see. We're going to screen on December 5th, I think is a Thursday, at Premier Cinemas at the Bassett Place.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and that's a free screening, and we'll probably do like a 5 o'clock and a 7 o'clock. We'll repeat.
Yeah.
Because the theaters, I think it only holds 130 people or something like that. So that's going to be a fun event.
Can people sign up for the music video challenge, or will it be after the 27th?
No, we're going to shoot. The shoot weekend is November 22nd, so
Okay.
that has already passed.
Okay. Apologies.
Yeah.
We'll cut that out. All right, then. So the screening on the 5th, though. Cool, man. Drew, once more. Appreciate you being here at the HQ. It's an honor to have you at an MF staple,
Yeah,
for sure.
I always wondered what this place looked like, and it's just as delivered.
Sunset Heights. Hey, man, that's how we do it over here at the HQ. You know what it is, man. Episode 40. That's how we do it. It took us 5 years to get 36 episodes of Midnight. It took us 11 months to get 40 of them for MFHQ. So it just shows how, like, the first project you do snowballs into the next one, and who knows where we're going next. We do. Y'all don't know yet. But that's gonna wrap it up for this episode, man. Make sure that you guys keep showing love to the platform. Of course, you can always watch all of our full-length episodes on our YouTube, MF Pearl. You can also catch them on our website, support the site, mfpearl.com. But if you are listening to us on your favorite streaming platform, Spotify, Apple Amazon Music, whichever one it is. Make sure that you guys show love on those platforms in any way that you can. Give it a like, share it, save it, give it a rating. 5 stars, boy. 5 stars. We need more of them things. And if you want to give us a 4-star, it's fine because it looks more realistic if it's 4.9 or whatever. But keep it at 5 if you believe in it. But hey, every Wednesday, Legends Only in the building. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Episode 40, Drew Mayer Oaks, Creative El Paso, live at MFHQ. Yeah.